You know, I've been watching people make choices for the better part of 70 years now, and I can tell you this: the moments that truly matter don't announce themselves with fanfare. They creep up quiet-like, on an ordinary Tuesday maybe, when the sun's beating down and you're just trying to get through another day. That September afternoon in 1882, standing on that depot platform in Millerton, Texas, I learned something about the difference between being chosen and being truly seen. The good Lord works in mysterious ways, they say, and I reckon that's true. But sometimes his mysteries look an awful lot like two broken people finding each other when the whole world's turned its back. This here's the story of Anna Miller and Jacob Cole, and how being the last one nobody wanted turned out to be the first day of everything that mattered. The noon sun hammered down on the wooden platform like it held a personal grudge against every soul gathered at the Millerton depot. Anna Miller pressed her tongue against the roof of her mouth, trying to work up enough spit to swallow. The tin water dipper had made 2 passes among the 10 women, but she'd refused both times. Let the others drink first. She'd learned that much about survival. Never show need when wolves were watching. "Ladies, gentlemen," Mr. Harwick's voice boomed across the crowd like he was selling Dr. Mitchell's miracle tonic at the county fair. "Fine women here, every one trained in the domestic arts. Miss Catherine from Pennsylvania, she can read, write, and cipher." A rancher with silver threading through his temples stepped forward, helped Miss Catherine down from the platform. The blonde girl smiled prettily, her relief visible as morning dew. 1 down, 9 to go. Anna kept her eyes fixed on the flat horizon where the railroad tracks disappeared into heat shimmer. She could feel the crowd's attention sliding over her like oil on water, never quite sticking. The woman beside her, Mrs. Garrett from Missouri, widow with 2 boys, shifted her weight from foot to foot. "Heard about you," Mrs. Garrett whispered, not unkindly but not friendly either. "The one that got sent back. Can't have children." The words hung between them like wash on a line. Anna didn't flinch. She'd heard worse, been called worse. By her own kin, no less, when Thomas Miller had returned her like a broken plow after 3 years of marriage. Her father hadn't even looked up from his newspaper when she'd stood on his porch. Her mother had pressed traveling money into her palm and closed the door, soft but final. "Miss Dorothy, accomplished seamstress, can make a man's shirt from pattern to final button." Another rancher claimed his prize. 8 women left. The platform felt bigger now, the spaces between bodies growing like accusation. Anna noticed how the claimed women looked back with that mixture of pity and relief. There but for the grace of God go I. The crowd pressed closer. She could smell their sweat mixed with tobacco, their Sunday perfume already soured in the heat. Women in calico dresses whispered behind gloved hands. Men spat tobacco juice and made jokes just loud enough for her to hear. "Something wrong with that one in brown," a voice carried. "Gotta be, if she's here second time around." "Returned merchandise," another agreed. "Harwick shouldn't even be showing her." Her fingernails bit crescents into her palms, but she kept her face smooth as fresh churned butter. She'd practiced this in the mirror at Mrs. Donnelly's boarding house, how to look through people instead of at them, how to stand like shame wasn't eating her from the inside out. "Mrs. Garrett, widowed but proven fertile, 2 healthy boys." The woman beside her practically flew off the platform into the arms of a German farmer who looked steady as good timber. 7 left. The spaces widened. Anna could feel herself becoming more visible with each selection, like watching dawn creep across the prairie when you'd rather stay hidden in darkness. The younger girls went fast. Sarah to the banker's son, Louise to the telegraph operator, Mary Elizabeth to someone's cousin from Austin. 4 left. 3. 2. Then just Anna. The laughter started soft, like wind through corn, then built to something uglier. Mr. Harwick's face had gone red as a ripe tomato, his papers rustling as he searched for something, anything to say about her that might salvage this disaster. Now, Miss Miller here, she's experienced in household management. The laughter swelled. Someone shouted, "Experienced, all right. Just can't close the deal." Her knees wanted to buckle. Her throat closed tight as a new boot. But she kept standing, kept staring at that horizon line like it might open up and swallow her whole. She thought about the narrow room at the boarding house she'd have to return to, the knowing looks from the other boarders, the whispers that would follow her to whatever town she tried next. That's when she heard it. Boots on wood, steady and unhurried as a heartbeat. The laughter stuttered, then stopped altogether, like someone had turned off a spigot. The crowd parted like the Red Sea in Exodus, and through that corridor of suddenly silent faces came Jacob Cole. She knew who he was, of course. Everyone in 3 counties knew. The rancher who'd lost his wife and baby 3 years back. The one who never came to town socials, never tipped his hat to the marriageable girls, never smiled at much of anything. He stood tall in that way that comes from working cattle, not from trying to be imposing. His clothes were clean but worn thin at the elbows, his face weathered by sun, and something deeper that lived behind his eyes. He stopped at the base of the platform, but instead of looking at her face like the others had, searching for what was wrong with her, his eyes went to her hands. She realized she'd unclenched them, and tiny drops of blood marked where her nails had broken skin. "Mr. Cole," Harwick stammered, mopping his face with a yellowed handkerchief. "I didn't... That is, I wasn't aware you were looking for..." "Wasn't." Jacob's voice was rough as burlap. "Changed my mind just now." He looked up then, met her eyes directly, not with pity, not with calculation like he was buying cattle, just looking, like he was seeing something everyone else had missed. "This one," he said, loud enough for the whole town to hear. "We're going." The silence that followed was complete as church prayer. Anna felt the platform sway under her feet, though she knew it was solid pine. Her mouth opened, but no words came. "What did you say when someone pulled you from the fire just as the flames started licking your skirts?" "Mr. Cole," Harwick tried again, shuffling his papers nervous-like, "I feel obligated to inform you of certain circumstances regarding Miss Miller's previous..." "Don't need to know." Jacob had already turned away. "She coming or not?" It took Anna 3 tries to make her voice work. "I'm coming." He nodded once, then started walking back through the crowd. She grabbed her carpet bag, light as hope and heavy as failure, and followed. The townspeople pulled back like she might be contagious, their faces twisted with confusion and something else. Disappointment, maybe, that the show hadn't ended the way they'd expected. "That's Jake Cole," someone whispered. "Taking on another man's leavings." "Fool's errand," another replied. "She'll disappoint him too." But Anna kept walking, following those steady shoulders through the crowd. Her legs shook with each step, but she didn't stumble, didn't look back. The platform and its humiliation fell away behind her, and ahead lay, she didn't know what, couldn't imagine. But it had to be better than standing alone while the world laughed. When they reached his wagon, practical, unadorned, built for work, not show, he stopped beside it. Didn't reach for her bag, didn't grab her elbow to help her up, just stood there, waiting. She understood then. He was giving her the choice. Even now, even after claiming her in front of the whole town, he was letting her decide. She could walk away, could return to the boarding house and the whispers and the slow death of being unwanted. Or she could climb into that wagon. She threw her carpet bag in the back, grabbed the sideboard, and hauled herself up. Her boots caught in her skirts and she nearly took a tumble, but she managed it without help. When she settled on the hard wooden bench, she saw something shift in his expression. Not quite approval. Maybe respect. He climbed up beside her, took the reins, and clicked his tongue at the mule team. They rolled forward, leaving the depot and its crowd behind. The silence between them was different from the silence on the platform. That had been the quiet before execution. This was... She didn't know yet, but she could breathe in it. As they passed the last buildings of town, she finally spoke. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. The mule's hooves kicked up dust that coated everything in fine powder. When he did speak, he didn't look at her. "You didn't beg." That was all. But somehow, it was enough. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now let's get back to the story. The wagon wheels found every rut like they were being paid for it. Anna gripped the sideboard until her knuckles went white, trying to keep herself from sliding into Jacob Cole. He sat like the bench was part of him, moving with each jolt instead of fighting it. Behind them, the crowd noise faded to murmur, then nothing. Just the creak of leather traces and the steady clop of mule hooves on packed dirt. She could still feel eyes on her back, though. Probably would from miles yet. "Mr. Cole." Her voice came out dusty. She swallowed, tried again. "There's things you should know about why I was available." "Don't need to know." "But surely..." "You cook?" The question caught her sideways. "Yes." "Wash clothes?" "Yes." "Know which end of a chicken lays eggs?" Despite everything, her mouth twitched. "The back end, generally." He made a sound that might have been amusement. "Then we're good." They passed the last house on the town's edge, the widow Morrison's place with its sagging fence and yellow roses gone wild. Anna had walked past it every day from the boarding house, wondering if she'd end up like that, alone and forgotten except for pity. "Your carpet bag's light," Jacob observed. "Don't own much." "Good. Don't have much." The honesty of it settled something in her chest. No pretense here. No promises of better than what was. "The ranch," she started, then stopped. "What did you ask? What kind of bed? How many cattle? Would there be other people or just them and the emptiness?" 8 miles out, maybe 9. 160 acres, most of it scrub. House has 4 rooms and a lean-to. He shifted the reins to one hand, pulled out a kerchief to wipe dust from his face. "You'll want the lean-to." "The lean-to?" "Built it last month. Has its own door. Lock on the inside." Anna turned to study his profile. Weathered as old leather, focused on the road ahead. A muscle jumped in his jaw like he was grinding words between his teeth. "You built me a room. Before you knew I existed." Built someone a room. Figured whoever answered that advertisement would want space of their own. Advertisement. So he'd been one of those men who rode away for a bride, like ordering from the Sears catalog. Only he hadn't even come to look at the selection until... "You weren't at the depot to meet us." "Wasn't planning on it." "What changed?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. A hawk circled overhead, riding thermals in the endless blue. The mules plodded on, steady as heartbeat. Saw the crowd gathering, like carrion birds. His hands tightened on the reins. Went to see what the fuss was about. And found her, the last one, the rejected one, the one nobody wanted. "I work hard," she said, needing to say something true. "Don't complain. Don't expect much." "Good. Neither do I." They hit a deeper rut, and she bounced hard, catching herself against his shoulder. He was solid as fence post, warm through the cotton shirt. She pulled back quick, but not before she smelled him. Lye soap and leather, and something like cedar. "Stream up ahead," he said. "Stop to water the mules." She could see it now. A line of green cutting through the brown landscape. Cottonwoods marking water like a promise. As they got closer, she saw something else, too. A rider waiting in the shade, hat pulled low. Jacob's shoulders went tight. His hand moved to the rifle propped against his knee, though he didn't lift it. "That's Harwick," he said, and the way he said it made Anna's stomach drop. Must have taken the cut-through. The bride agent sat his horse with the patience of a man holding winning cards, papers rolled in his hand like a weapon he hadn't decided whether to use. Jacob pulled the mules to a stop 20 feet from where Harwick waited. The bride agent's horse stamped and blew, eager for the water just beyond. But Harwick held him firm, those rolled papers tapping against his thigh. "Mr. Cole." Harwick touched his hat brim. "Miss Miller." "It's done, Harwick." Jacob's voice carried no more emotion than if he was discussing fence posts. "You got your fee. We got our business. Nothing left to say." "Now that's where you're wrong." Harwick shifted in his saddle, leather creaking. "See, I got obligations. Legal ones. When a woman's been previously married and returned, there's documents need signing. Waivers. Protections for you, Mr. Cole." Anna's stomach clenched. Here it came. The details. The humiliation served up fresh for Jacob Cole to digest. "Don't need protecting." Jacob clicked his tongue at the mules, started them walking. Harwick nudged his horse sideways, blocking the path to water. "You need to know what you're taking on. This woman is sitting right here." The words jumped out of Anna before she could stop them. Both men turned to look at her. She straightened her spine, met Harwick's eyes. "Whatever you think needs saying, Mr. Harwick, say it plain." Harwick's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Mrs. Miller." "Miss Miller," she corrected. "The divorce was final. Thomas wanted that clear as spring water." "Miss Miller, then. I'm only trying to protect Mr. Cole's interests. He should know about your condition." The word hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire. Anna felt Jacob go still beside her. Not tense, exactly. More like a man listening for thunder after lightning strike. 3 years married, Harwick continued, warming to his subject. No children. Husband testified to normal marital relations. Doctor in Fort Worth confirmed no obvious impediment on his side. Makes a man wonder what? Makes a man wonder why you're still talking. Jacob's interruption came soft, which somehow made it worse. "Move your horse." "I'm trying to help you, Cole. You don't know what you're— I know you're keeping my mules from water. Know you're speaking on things that ain't your business. Know if you don't move that horse in the next 10 seconds, I'll move it for you." Harwick's face went red, then white. His horse danced sideways, sensing the tension. "I'm trying to do right by you, Cole. That woman can't have children. Documented. You take her on, you're taking on a lifetime of empty house, empty nursery, empty—" Jacob was off the wagon before Anna could blink. He didn't run, didn't hurry, just stepped down and walked toward Harwick with the inevitability of sunset. Harwick's horse shied back, and the agent had to fight to control him. "Empty," Jacob repeated, like he was tasting the word. "You want to talk about empty?" He stopped beside Harwick's horse, one hand on the bridle. "My house already got empty. Got 3 years of empty. Got a grave with 2 stones side by side. Empty. You think this woman's going to make that worse?" Harwick swallowed hard enough that Anna could see his throat work from where she sat. I just thought, no, you didn't think. Jacob released the bridle, stepped back. You wanted your show, wanted your drama. Well, you got it back at the depot. Now get. For a heartbeat, Harwick looked like he might argue. Then he wheeled his horse around and spurred harder than necessary. The animal leaped forward, kicking up dust that settled over everything like judgment. Jacob stood there watching until horse and rider disappeared over a rise. Then he walked back to the wagon, slow and steady, and climbed up beside her. Sorry about that. He took up the reins again. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. He guided the mules down to the stream. They waded in up to their knees, drinking deep while the water ran clear and cold around them. Jacob set the brake, climbed down again, and went to check their hooves. Anna watched him run his hands down each leg, checking for stones or cuts with the kind of patience that couldn't be faked. You should know, she said to his back. What he said was true. About there being no children. He straightened up, water dripping from his hands. You should know that my wife died trying to give me one. Baby died too. Took them most of a day to die while I sat there useless as teats on a boar. He wiped his hands on his pants. So if you're worried I'm looking for a brood mare, you can stop. The words should have been harsh, but they came out tired, like facts worn smooth from handling. Then why? Anna asked. Why take a wife at all? He looked at her then, really looked at her. His eyes were the color of winter grass, gray-green and distant. Ranch don't run itself. Need another pair of hands, someone who can do what needs doing without expecting much in return. That's all? That's all. She nodded slowly. It was honest, at least. More honest than Thomas had ever been with his promises of love eternal, right up until the doctor said the word that changed everything. I can do that, she said. Work for my keep. That's all I'm asking. Good. He went back to checking the mules. There's more, though. Things you should know before we get there. Anna waited while he finished with the animals, then watched him pull the canteen from under the seat. He took a drink, offered it to her. The water was warm and tasted of metal, but she drank anyway. I don't talk much, he said. Don't go to town socials. Don't have people over except when business requires. Don't expect that to change. Suits me fine. I get up before dawn, work till past dark. Expect the same. I'm not afraid of work. The house is rough. Functional, but not pretty. Don't have money for pretty. Pretty never did me any favors anyway. That got something almost like a smile. Just a twitch at the corner of his mouth, but it changed his whole face for a second. Made him look younger, less like a man carved from oak and rawhide. One more thing. He took the canteen back, capped it carefully. That lean-to room, it's yours, your space. I won't come in uninvited. Won't expect you in mine. We'll share the kitchen and common areas, share the work. But that's all we're sharing. Understood? The relief hit her so hard she had to grip the wagon seat. Thomas had taken what he called his marital rights every night for 3 years, until the doctor said there was no point. Even after that, when corn liquor made him mean, he'd still... Understood, she managed. Good. He climbed back up, released the brake. 4 more miles, maybe 5. They pulled out of the stream, water running off the wheels in silver streams. The sun had passed its peak, throwing their shadow alongside like a companion. Anna settled back on the hard bench, feeling something she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten its name. Not hope, exactly. Not peace, but maybe the space where those things could grow if given time and quiet and room. The mules found their rhythm again. The wagon rolled on. And then she saw it. A rider coming fast from the direction of the ranch, dust cloud rising behind him like smoke. Jacob's hands tightened on the reins, and she felt him tense in a way he hadn't even with Harwick. "That's Sam," he said, and the way he said it made her stomach drop all over again. "My neighbor's boy. He wouldn't ride like that unless something's wrong." The boy was shouting something, but the wind tore his words away. All Anna could make out was the panic in his voice, and the way he was pointing back toward where dark smoke was starting to rise against the horizon. Sam Patterson's horse was lathered white when he pulled up hard beside them. The boy couldn't be more than 14, face red as raw beef, words tumbling out between gasps.
"Mr. Cole, fire jumped the creek. Pa says if it reaches your grass."
"How far?" Jacob was already turning the wagon.
"Maybe 2 miles from your south pasture. Wind's pushing it north."
Sam's horse danced in place, sides heaving.
"Pa sent me to warn you, in case you need to move stock."
Jacob's jaw worked. "Stock's in the home pasture. Should be safe. Tell your pa I appreciate the warning."
"Yes, sir."
The boy wheeled his horse around, then stopped.
"Sir, we could use every hand if you're willing, after you see to your place."
"I'll come." Jacob waited until Sam was galloping away before he turned to Anna. "Change of plans." The smoke on the horizon had thickened, spreading like spilled ink across the sky. Anna could smell it now. Not wood smoke, but grass smoke, sharp and mean. "Fire's not threatening the house," Jacob said, working the reins to speed the mules without panicking them. "But I need to check the brakes I plowed, make sure they'll hold." "Brakes?" "Strips of turned earth. Stops fire from spreading, most times." His eyes stayed on that smoke. "Ranch is just over that rise. I'll show you the house quick, then I gotta go help Patterson." They crested the hill and Anna saw it. A low house of rough lumber and cedar posts, looking like it had grown from the land rather than been built on it. A barn stood off to one side, corral attached. No garden, no flowers, no woman's touch anywhere. But solid. Everything about it said solid. Jacob pulled up at the front door, jumped down, and reached for her carpet bag. "Come on, I'll show you what's what." The house smelled of bacon grease and dust. 4 rooms as promised. Kitchen that served as main room, 2 bedrooms, and a small parlor that looked like it hadn't seen use since creation. Everything functional. Everything bare. Stove works good, but the damper sticks. He was moving through the space fast, pointing things out. "Pumps at the kitchen sink. Water's good, comes from a spring. Root cellars through that door. Smokehouse out back." He pushed open a door at the back of the kitchen. The lean-to room was narrow but private, with its own door to outside, like he'd said. A simple iron bed with corn shuck mattress, a washstand, hooks for clothes, a small window with flour sack curtains. "Lock's there." He pointed to the bolt on the inside of both doors. "Nobody bothers you here." Anna set her carpet bag on the bed. The room smelled of new lumber and emptiness. But it was hers. That bolt on the door said so. "Chickens are in the coop by the barn." Jacob was already backing out. "Probably need feed. Grains in the barn, marked bins. There's preserved goods in the cellar, salt pork in the smokehouse. Make yourself at home." "You're leaving? Now?" He stopped at the kitchen door. "Fire don't wait. I gotta help Patterson, then check my own brakes. Might not be back till late. Maybe morning." "But I just..." She swallowed the rest. What was she going to say? That she didn't know where anything was? That she'd never been alone on a ranch? That the thought of spending her first night in a stranger's house without even the stranger there made her chest tight? "You'll be fine." He said it like fact, not encouragement. "House is solid. You got food, water, shelter. Lock the doors if it makes you feel better." Then he was gone. She heard the wagon rattling away, fast now, leaving her in the silence of the empty house. Through the window, she could see the smoke growing darker. Closer, maybe, though it was hard to tell. Anna stood in the middle of the kitchen taking inventory. Cast iron stove that needed blacking, table with 2 chairs, one worn more than the other, shelves with a few dishes, none matching, a coffee pot on the stove with grounds from morning still in it. She walked to the shelves, ran her finger through the dust. A line of clean wood showed beneath. On the table, circles from coffee cups. By the stove, grease spots on the wall from bachelor cooking. The place needed work, needed care, needed someone to make it more than just shelter. She found herself moving, unpacking her few things in the lean-to, 2 dresses, underclothes, her mother's Bible that she hadn't opened in months, a hairbrush, the bar of yellow soap she'd been saving. Then back to the kitchen, tying her apron, claiming the space the only way she knew how. Water from the pump ran rusty at first, then clear. She found lye soap and rags, started with the table. The wood was good underneath the grime, pine boards that would gleam with enough work. The coffee pot got scoured, the old grounds thrown out the back door. In the root cellar, she found treasures. Potatoes gone soft, but not rotten, onions, a jar of preserved peaches that looked like sunset in glass. The smokehouse had salt pork as promised, along with a ham that might be good if the inside wasn't turned. The chickens complained when she entered their coop, 5 hens and a rooster with ideas above his station. She found eggs, 4 of them, warm in the straw. The grain bin in the barn was marked clear, as promised. Everything Jacob Cole did seemed to be clear, ordered, without decoration. Back in the kitchen, she built up the fire in the stove. The damper did stick, but she figured out if you lifted and twisted at the same time, it gave. Soon she had water heating, beans soaking for tomorrow, and a decision to make about supper. Would he expect a meal when he returned? Would he think her presumptuous if she cooked, or lazy if she didn't? The smoke outside was definitely thicker now. She could see orange glow at its base when the wind shifted. The fire was still miles away, but miles meant nothing to prairie fire with wind behind it. She made cornbread because she had the makings, fried the salt pork until it was crispy, set it aside, found wild onions growing by the back door, added them to the pork drippings, cut up potatoes to fry. It wasn't fancy, but it would fill a man's stomach after fighting fire. The sun was setting, painting everything the color of the smoke when she heard horses. Not one, several. She went to the window, saw shapes moving in the dusk. Men's voices, but she couldn't make out words. Then footsteps on the porch, the door opening. Jacob stood there, covered in soot and ash, and behind him, 3 men she didn't recognize, all equally black with smoke, all looking at her with expressions that ranged from surprise to something else. Something that made her step back until her hip hit the table. "Brought help," Jacob said. "Fire jumped the break." The biggest of the men, red beard showing through the soot, smiled in a way that showed too many teeth. "Well now, Jake, you didn't tell us you had company." The red-bearded man took a step into the kitchen, his boots leaving ash marks on the floor Anna had just cleaned. The other 2 men crowded behind him, filling the doorway with their bulk and smoke smell. "This is my wife." Jacob's voice cut flat across the room. "Anna." The word wife hung there like a fence between her and them. Redbeard's smile faltered, reformed into something more careful. "Wife? Since when you got a wife, Jake?" "Since today." Jacob moved past them to the wash basin, started scrubbing the black from his hands. "Fire contained?" "For now." Redbeard was still looking at Anna. "Wind dies down, should hold till morning." "And you boys best get back to your own places." Jacob dried his hands on the towel she'd hung by the basin. "Long ride in the dark." Now hold on. The second man, skinny with a farmer's tan, pushed forward. We've been fighting that fire all day. Least you could do is offer some grub. Anna's hands found the table edge behind her. The cornbread was cooling on the stove, salt pork and potatoes staying warm in the spider skillet. Enough for one man. Maybe two. Not four. Wife's had a long day too. Jacob positioned himself between her and them, casual-like but firm. Just arrived from town. The bride sale? Redbeard's eyebrows went up. You actually went through with that fool plan? Appreciate your help with the fire. Jacob opened the door wider, not inviting them further in, inviting them out. Tell Patterson I'll come by tomorrow, help rebuild his break. The three men looked at each other. The third one, older with gray streaking his temples, cleared his throat. Come on, boys. Man wants his wedding. But they left, boots heavy on the porch, voices carrying back through the dark. She heard Redbeard say something about mail-order goods, and another man laugh. Jacob closed the door, set the bolt, then stood there with his back to her, shoulders tight as fence wire. I made supper, Anna said into the silence. If you're hungry. He turned around slow, taking in the cleaned kitchen, the food on the stove, the table she'd wiped down to bare wood. You didn't have to. Had to eat myself. She moved to the stove, started filling a plate, easier to move than to stand still under his gaze. Sit. You look ready to fall over. He sat. She put the plate in front of him, cornbread, pork, potatoes with wild onions. Nothing special, but his eyes widened like she'd served Christmas dinner. He took a bite, closed his eyes, chewed slow. Been 6 months since anyone cooked in this kitchen besides me, he said finally. Shows in the grease stains. That got almost a smile. He ate steady but not rushed, cleaning his plate while she fixed her own portion. They sat across from each other, the lantern between them throwing shadows on the walls. Fire, she said. Is it? Turned back on itself. Patterson lost some grazing land, but no structures. My brakes held. He reached for the cornbread, tore it in half. Happens every summer. Grass gets dry, lightning strikes, or some fool drops a cigarette. Whole prairie goes up. Those men won't be back. He said it firm, final. They know you're here now. Word'll spread by morning. Nobody'll bother you. She wanted to ask what would have happened if he hadn't claimed her as wife. But she knew. Same thing that happened to untethered women everywhere.
The one with the red beard,
she said. He seemed disappointed. Jacob's jaw tightened. Tom Hadley. Has ideas about what he's owed for being born male and white. Best you stay clear of him. Planning on it. They finished eating. Anna collected the plates, pumped water to wash them. Jacob sat at the table, exhaustion settling over him like dust. She could see it in the way his shoulders curved, the way his hands lay flat on the table like they were too heavy to lift. You should sleep, she said. Lot of days like this. He stood, joints popping. You get used to it. He headed for his bedroom, stopped at the door. That lean-to? Lock it tonight. Both doors. You think they'll? No. But lock it anyway. She did. Both doors, checked twice. Then lay on the corn shuck mattress, fully dressed, listening. The house settled around her, boards creaking as the day's heat leaked away. Wind pushed at the walls, carrying the faint smell of smoke. Through the thin wall, she heard Jacob moving in his room, the scrape of boots being pulled off, the groan of bed ropes as he lay down. Then nothing, just breathing that turned steady, deep. Anna stared at the ceiling, counting knots in the wood. This was her life now. This room, this house, this man who'd taken her on like hiring help. No romance, no expectations, Just work and food and a bolt on the door. The rooster woke her before dawn, crowing like Judgment Day. Anna rolled out of bed, muscles stiff from the thin mattress, and dressed in the dark. Through the window, stars still pricked the sky, but the eastern horizon showed the faintest gray. By the time she got the stove fired up, Jacob was in the kitchen. He moved around her careful-like, filling his coffee pot, slicing bread. They worked without talking, without bumping into each other, like dancers who'd learned the steps separately. "I'll be working the home pasture today," he said finally. "Checking fence. You need anything from the barn, get it this morning." "Chickens need tending." "They're your department now." He pulled on his boots. "Eggs are yours to use or sell. Same with kitchen garden if you want to plant one."
Bit late in the season.
"Still time for greens, turnips, maybe winter squash if we don't get early frost." Would Jacob expect dinner? She'd seen him take bread, but a man couldn't work all day on bread alone. She made biscuits, opened a jar of the preserved peaches, fried up eggs with the leftover potatoes, set it all on the table, then felt foolish, like a wife playing house. But he came in right at noon, washed his hands without being asked, and sat down to eat like this was established routine. "Fence is sound," he said between bites. "Lost some posts to rot on the north side. Need to replace them before winter."
"I can help."
He looked up from his plate. "You ever set fence posts?"
"No, but I can learn."
"Maybe." He went back to eating. "Garden plot's on the south side of the house. Hasn't been worked in 3 years. Soil might be played out." 3 years, since his wife died. Anna didn't comment on that, just nodded. Days fell into pattern after that. Up before dawn, coffee and bread. Jacob to his work, Anna to hers. Noon dinner if he was close enough to come in. Supper as the sun set. Evenings on the porch, him whittling or mending harness, her with sewing from the basket she'd found in the parlor. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The work talked for them. Fixed fence, mended shirts, full bellies, clean clothes. A week passed. Then 2. The burned prairie started showing green at the base, life pushing through the black. Anna got the garden plot turned, though her hands blistered and her back screamed. Jacob noticed, brought her leather gloves from town the next day. No comment, just left them on the table. She learned his preferences without asking. Coffee strong enough to float horseshoes, beans with plenty of salt pork, cornbread over biscuits. He learned hers too somehow. Always left the water bucket full when he knew she was doing wash. Fixed the squeaky board by her door without being asked. The 3rd week, she was hanging laundry when she heard herself humming, some tune from childhood, barely remembered. She stopped, looked around guilty-like. But Jacob was in the far pasture, nobody to hear, nobody to care. She went back to the washing, let the tune continue. The wet clothes snapped in the wind, the sun beat down warm, and for a moment she forgot to guard against contentment. That's when she saw the rider approaching. Not fast like Sam Patterson that first day. Slow, deliberate. A woman riding side saddle, back straight as righteousness. Anna knew before the woman got close enough to see clear. Mrs. Patterson. Come to inspect the new wife. Come to judge and find wanting. The humming died in her throat. She smoothed her apron, tucked loose hair behind her ears, and prepared for the kind of battle that left no visible blood, but cut just as deep. Mrs. Patterson's horse picked its way across the yard like it was too good for the dirt. The woman herself sat rigid in her black riding habit, despite the heat that had the horse's neck dark with sweat. Behind her, matching her pace exactly, rode a younger woman in blue calico, the daughter, probably, come to see the circus. Anna's hands were still wet from the washing. She dried them on her apron, knowing it would leave marks, not caring. Let them see her as she was, working woman, not parlor decoration.
Mrs. Cole?
Mrs. Patterson's voice carried across the yard like she was calling hogs.
I do hope we're not interrupting.
The Mrs. Cole hit strange. 3 weeks wearing the name, and it still felt borrowed, like a dress that didn't quite fit.
Mrs. Patterson.
Anna didn't move from the laundry line. Made them come to her.
Miss Patterson.
The daughter, 16 maybe, with her mother's sharp nose but softer eyes, nodded quick. Mrs. Patterson dismounted with practiced grace, handed her reins to her daughter, and advanced across the yard like Grant taking Richmond.
We simply had to come welcome you properly.
She looked at the washing, the suds bucket, Anna's wet apron, and her smile said everything.
I do apologize for not coming sooner, but one heard such conflicting reports.
Reports?
Oh, you know how men talk. Or perhaps you don't, being newly arrived.
Mrs. Patterson pulled off her riding gloves, one finger at a time.
Tom Hadley said Jacob had taken a wife. My husband insisted it couldn't be true. Jacob's been quite firm about not remarrying since dear Sarah passed.
Dear Sarah. Like they'd been intimate friends. Anna happened to know Sarah Cole had died before the Pattersons even moved to the county.
Yet here you are,
Mrs. Patterson continued. How unexpected. Would you like some water? Anna asked. Coffee? Coffee would be lovely, if you have it. One never knows what provisions a bachelor establishment might lack. Anna led them to the house, aware of how they catalogued everything. The swept porch, the mended steps, the clean windows. Inside, she saw them note the scrubbed floors, the organized shelves, the absence of dust. Mrs. Patterson's mouth tightened. She'd been hoping for squalor. How charming, she said, in a tone that meant the opposite. You've done wonders with so little to work with. Anna put the coffee on to heat, set out cups. The good ones, the ones she'd found wrapped in newspaper in the back of a shelf. No saucers, but the cups were china, painted with tiny roses. These were Sarah's, Mrs. Patterson said immediately. I remember when she ordered them from the Sears catalog. Such refined taste she had. They're pretty, Anna agreed, not rising to the bait. She was accomplished, you know. Could play piano, speak French. Her needlework won prizes at the county fair.
Mama,
the daughter said soft.
Perhaps Mrs. Cole doesn't.
Hush, Margaret. Mrs. Patterson settled into a chair like she owned it. I'm simply making conversation. I'm sure Mrs. Cole appreciates knowing about her predecessor. Don't you, dear? Anna poured the coffee steady, though her hand wanted to shake. Sugar? If you have it. She did. Jacob had brought a cone from town last week, left it on the table without comment. She chipped off pieces with the special pliers, set them on a plate. How delightful. Jacob must be doing better than one assumed. Mrs. Patterson helped herself to 3 pieces. Tell me, where exactly are you from? Back east. How wonderfully vague. And your people? Dead. Mrs. Patterson's cup paused halfway to her mouth. All of them? Enough of them. Margaret shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. She was pretty in an unfinished way, like dough that needed more time to rise. Her eyes kept darting to the door like she wanted to bolt. And how did you and Jacob meet? Mrs. Patterson pressed on. It must have been quite the whirlwind courtship, given that no one knew he was even corresponding with anyone. Anna sipped her coffee, let the silence stretch. Outside, one of the hens was making a fuss about something, probably the rooster getting too familiar. We met when we needed to, she said finally. How romantic. Though I suppose romance isn't always necessary, is it? Sometimes practical considerations suffice. Her eyes swept over Anna's mended dress, her work-rough hands. I imagine you're grateful for the security. I imagine Jacob's grateful for the cooking. Margaret made a sound that might have been a laugh, quickly smothered. Mrs. Patterson's nostrils flared. Yes, well, men do appreciate their comforts. Speaking of which, you must tell me your secret for managing that kitchen garden. The soil here is so difficult. Work. I beg your pardon? The secret is work. Turn the soil, add manure, water when needed. Pull weeds before they seed. Nothing fancy. How industrious. Mrs. Patterson set down her cup with a click. You know, there's a ladies' aid society in town. We meet monthly, discuss literature, organize charity work. I could sponsor you if you'd like to join. Anna heard the trap in it. Join and be the perpetual outsider, the one they discussed when she wasn't there. The mail-order bride. The woman who couldn't have children. The one who wasn't Sarah. That's kind of you, but I'm kept busy here. Of course. A ranch does require constant attention, especially one that's been neglected. She stood, pulling on her gloves. We really must be going. But first, I'd love to see what you've done with the rest of the house. Sarah had such plans for improvement. The house is as it needs to be. Still, I'm sure she'd want to know it's being cared for. She loved this place so. There it was again. Sarah. 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 Like saying the name enough times would resurrect her. Margaret, Anna said, ignoring Mrs. Patterson. Would you like some eggs to take home? The hens are laying well. The girl's face lit up. Oh, could I? Of course. Anna grabbed the egg basket. Come on. She led Margaret out, leaving Mrs. Patterson standing in the kitchen. Let her snoop if she wanted. Nothing to find but clean floors and mended clothes. At the chicken coop, Margaret finally relaxed. I'm sorry about Mama. She gets ideas about how things should be. Most people do. She means well, usually. It's just, she and Mrs. Cole, the first one, they were planning to be great friends. Then she died before Mama could properly establish the friendship. And Mama hates unfinished things. Anna collected eggs while Margaret held the basket. Were you friends with her, Sarah? I only met her once. She was very beautiful, very delicate. Delicate. Everything Anna wasn't. Mr. Cole must have loved her very much, Margaret continued. Mama says he nearly went mad when she died. Wouldn't let anyone help with the burial. Dug both graves himself. Both graves. Mother and baby. Anna's hand hesitated over the next nest. But he seems better now, Margaret added quickly. Sam says he's been working the ranch properly again, even whistling sometimes. Sam says a lot for a boy. Margaret blushed. He's not a boy. He's 15, almost 16. Anna hid a smile. So that's how it was. Nearly a man, then. Exactly. Margaret took the full basket. Mrs. Cole, can I ask you something? Ask. Are you happy here? The question caught Anna sideways. Happy? What did that even mean? She had food, shelter, work, and a man who left her be. Was that happiness or just the absence of misery? I'm where I need to be, she said. Margaret nodded like that made perfect sense. They walked back to find Mrs. Patterson on the porch, lips pursed like she'd been sucking lemons. There you are. We really must go. She mounted her horse with sharp movements. Do tell Jacob we called. I'm sure he'll be interested to know. They rode off, Mrs. Patterson's back rigid with disapproval, Margaret turning once to wave. Anna stood on the porch, watching dust settle in their wake. Jacob would be back soon for supper. Would he be angry about the visitors? About her letting them in,
serving them coffee from Sarah's cups. She went inside, started to wash the dishes, then stopped. There on the table, where Mrs. Patterson had been sitting, was a small leather journal, worn at the edges, tied with a faded ribbon. Anna picked it up, knew immediately what it was, even before she saw the name written on the inside cover in careful script. Sarah Elizabeth Cole, her book of days. Mrs. Patterson hadn't forgotten it. She'd left it, deliberate as a slap. And now Anna held Sarah's diary in her hands, feeling the weight of all those words, all those days lived by the woman who'd had everything Anna didn't: beauty, accomplishment, fertility, and Jacob Cole's love. The smart thing would be to put it aside, give it to Jacob when he came in, let him decide what to do with his dead wife's thoughts. But her fingers were already untying the ribbon, and the first page was falling open, and Sarah's voice was rising from the paper like smoke. January 1st, 1879. Today Jacob smiled at me, and I knew my life was beginning. Anna's fingers trembled as she turned the page. Sarah's handwriting was perfect. Each letter formed like she was teaching penmanship. January 15th, 1879. Jacob brought me roses from town today, yellow ones. He said they reminded him of my laugh. I pressed one between these pages to remember this feeling, being treasured, being seen, being loved. A dried petal fell out, brittle as old skin. Anna caught it, held it to the window light. Still yellow after 3 years dead. February 3rd, 1879. The house needs so much work, but Jacob promises we'll make it beautiful together. I've drawn plans for a parlor with real wallpaper, curtains from St. Louis. He laughs at my ambitions, but I see him saving every penny. The front door opened. Anna slammed the journal shut, shoved it under a dish towel. Jacob stood in the doorway, sweat cutting channels through the dust on his face. Saw tracks in the yard. We have visitors? Mrs. Patterson and her daughter. Anna busied herself at the stove, not meeting his eyes. They came to welcome me. He grunted, went to the wash basin. Water splashed. What did she want? To inspect, to judge, to make sure I knew about... She stopped. About Sarah. Yes. He dried his face slow, the towel covering his expression. When he lowered it, his face was blank as fresh paper. She leave satisfied? Left something behind. Anna pulled out the journal, set it on the table between them. Jacob stared at it like it might bite. His hand reached out, pulled back, reached again. Finally picked it up. Sarah's diary. His thumb traced her name on the cover. Thought I'd burned everything. Mrs. Patterson left it, on purpose. Sounds like her. He opened it to that first page, read the words about smiling, about life beginning. His jaw worked. You read it? Just the first page, before you came in. He nodded, kept turning pages, stopped at one, read silently. His face changed, softened, then hardened again. He closed the book. I need to tell you something. About her. About what happened. You don't owe me explanations. Maybe not, but you should know. He sat heavy in his chair. Sarah was... fragile. Not just her body, her mind, her spirit. Beautiful and fragile like those teacups she ordered. Anna sat across from him, waited. She hated it here at first. The isolation, the work, the dirt that never stopped blowing. But she tried. Lord knows she tried. Painted flowers on the walls to make it prettier, sang while she worked, made this place feel like something more than boards and nails.
His fingers drummed the table, found a rhythm, stopped. When she got pregnant, she was so happy. Started sewing little clothes, planning a nursery in the lean-to, picking names. Jacob Jr. for a boy, Rose for a girl. He laughed, but it sounded like breaking. I built that cradle she wanted, spent 2 months carving flowers on the headboard. Anna remembered the lean-to room, her room now. No sign of a nursery, no cradle. The labor started early, 2 months early. I wanted to get the doctor, but she said no, it was just false pains. By the time I knew something was wrong, the nearest doctor was 20 miles. Roads were mud from spring rain. He stood abrupt, went to the window. His back blocked the late afternoon light. Took me 5 hours to get there and back. 5 hours she labored alone, except for Mrs. Henley from the next ranch. When I got back with the doctor, she was barely conscious. Baby was stuck. Had been for hours. Anna's stomach clenched. She knew this story. Every woman knew this story. Doctor did what he could. Got the baby out, but it never breathed. Never cried. And Sarah, she held on another day. Long enough to understand what happened. Long enough to blame herself. To apologize over and over for failing. He turned from the window. I told her it wasn't her fault. Told her we'd try again when she was stronger. Lied right to her face while she was dying. That wasn't lying. That was kindness. Was it? He picked up the journal again. Know what her last words were? Find someone stronger. Not I love you or remember me. Just find someone stronger. The words sat between them like stones. Anna understood now why he'd built the lean-to, why he'd come to the depot, why he'd chosen her, the woman already proven barren, already rejected, someone who couldn't fail him the way Sarah had, couldn't die trying to give him what she couldn't give. I didn't want stronger, he said quiet. I wanted nothing, nobody. Just work and silence and no more dying on my watch. But you answered the advertisement. Sent for a bride. Ranch needs 2 people. Can't do it alone, much as I tried. And the men around here, they talk. Bachelor with property becomes a target. Widows showing up with casseroles. Fathers pushing daughters at you. Easier to have a wife. Safer. Safer. There it was. The word that explained everything. So you picked the one no one wanted. I picked the one who stood straight while the world laughed at her. That's different. Anna felt something shift in her chest. Not hope exactly, something quieter. Can I ask you something? She said. About Sarah? He nodded. Did you love her? He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I loved who she was trying to be. This frontier woman, this rancher's wife. But that wasn't who she really was. She was a banker's daughter from Dallas who read too many romantic novels about the West. He set the journal on the table. You want to read the rest? No. You sure? Might answer questions. I don't have questions about Sarah. I have questions about you. His eyebrows raised. That first day, Anna said, when Harwick was telling you about my situation, you already knew, didn't you? Before he said anything? Suspected. How? The way the other women avoided you, the way you held yourself separate, the way you looked like you were preparing for a blow. He met her eyes straight on. Recognized it. Same way I stood after Sarah died, waiting for the next hurt, and you picked me anyway. Because of it. Figured we'd understand each other. 2 people who'd already been broken. Nothing left to break. Anna stood, started pulling things for supper. Beans, cornbread, simple things that didn't require thought. You're wrong about that. About what? Nothing left to break. She opened the bean pot, stirred. There's always something left to break. Question is whether it's worth the risk. She heard his chair scrape, his footsteps crossing to his room. The door closed soft. When he came back, he was carrying something wrapped in brown paper. Found this in the attic when I was cleaning it out, before you came. He set it on the table. Was going to burn it with the rest. Didn't. Don't know why. Anna dried her hands, unwrapped the paper carefully. Inside was a dress, yellow calico with tiny blue flowers. Simple, but well made. Size about right. It was Sarah's? She asked. No. Bought it in town when I sent the marriage advertisement. Figured whoever came would need clothes. Ranch life is hard on fancy dresses. She held it up. Good fabric. Practical cut. Meant for work, but pretty enough for church. You bought this before you knew who was coming? Yeah. But you didn't give it to me. Didn't seem right, giving you things meant for someone else, even if that someone was nobody in particular. She folded the dress carefully, rewrapped it. I'll take it now, if that's all right. It's yours. They stood there, table between them, late light slanting through the window. She could hear the chickens settling for the night, the wind picking up, the distant bawl of cattle. Jacob? Yeah? Thank you for telling me about Sarah. Figured you had a right to know, living in her house, using her things. It's not her house anymore. He looked around the kitchen, the clean windows, the organized shelves, the table scrubbed to bare wood. No, suppose it's not. He went back outside to finish the evening chores. Anna returned to supper preparations, the yellow dress on the chair beside her. Through the window, she watched him crossing to the barn, shoulders bent with more than just the day's labor. She thought about Sarah's journal still on the table, about pressed flowers and plans for wallpaper, about a woman trying to be what she wasn't, dying in the attempt. Then she looked at her own hands, rough, capable, alive, not delicate, not beautiful, but here, present, real. The beans were bubbling, cornbread rising in the oven. Simple food for simple people who'd learned that survival was its own kind of victory. She picked up Sarah's journal, walked to the stove. The fire was burning good, hot enough to consume paper in seconds. All she had to do was open the iron door, toss it in, end the comparisons, stop the ghost from wandering these rooms. But as her hand reached for the handle, she saw something tucked in the back pages. Not Sarah's handwriting, Jacob's. Rougher, darker, pressed deep like the pencil was trying to cut through to truth. She pulled the page free, dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before he came to the depot. Sarah told me to find someone stronger. Been thinking maybe she meant stronger, different. Not stronger body. Stronger at being alone. Stronger at accepting less. Stronger at surviving without love. The words blurred. Anna blinked hard, read the last line. Maybe I'm the one needs to be stronger. Strong enough to try again. Different this time. True this time. She heard his boots on the porch, quickly tucked the page back in the journal. But she couldn't shake the question now burning in her chest. When he wrote about trying again, did he mean trying to have a wife? Or trying to have something more? The sky turned yellow as old bones, while Anna pulled clothes from the line. The air pressed down thick, made breathing feel like drowning. Every piece of fabric she touched sparked with lightning that hadn't struck yet. "Storm coming," Jacob called from the barn.
He was driving the cattle into the near pasture, moving fast but calm. "Big one." She'd seen storms in Texas, but this was different. The birds had gone silent. The chickens huddled in their coop without being driven. Even the flies had stopped buzzing. Jacob secured the barn doors, checked the latches twice. "Get inside. I need to board the windows." "I can help." "Inside." Not harsh, but firm. "Fill everything that holds water. Bathtub, buckets, pots. This could last days." Anna ran for the house as the first wind hit. Not gradual build, immediate slam that nearly knocked her sideways. Dust rose in a wall, turning noon to twilight. Inside, she worked fast, pumped water until her arms burned, filled the washtub, the cooking pots, even the good china cups. Through the windows, she saw Jacob wrestling boards into place, his shirt whipping like a flag. Thunder rolled across the prairie, so deep she felt it in her chest. Then lightning, not single strikes, but sheets of white that lit everything stark as bones. The temperature dropped 20 degrees between one breath and the next. Jacob burst through the door, hair wild, eyes bright with urgency. "Cellar, now!" "But the house." "This ain't regular storm. Look." She followed his point through the last unboarded window. The horizon had disappeared behind a wall of black-green cloud, rotating slow as a mill wheel. At its base, something worse. A cone reaching down like the Lord's own finger of judgment. "Tornado," he said. "Maybe 10 minutes out." They grabbed what they could: water bucket, lantern, the egg basket she'd just gathered. The cellar door fought them, wind trying to rip it from Jacob's hands. They half fell down the steps as the first hail hit. Not rain. Ice chunks big as walnuts hammering the roof like artillery. The cellar was small, dark, smelling of earth and potatoes. Jacob lit the lantern, hung it from a beam. In the yellow light, they looked at each other. His shirt was torn. Blood ran from a cut on his cheek where something had hit him. "Let me." Anna reached for his face. The house above them screamed. Wood straining, nails pulling. Something heavy hit the floor above, furniture thrown like toys. "Get down." Jacob pulled her against the back wall, covered her with his body as dirt rained from between the boards. The lantern swung wild, throwing shadows that danced like demons. The roar came then. Not wind, something alive and hungry. The cellar door rattled, held, rattled harder. Anna pressed her face into Jacob's shoulder, felt his heart hammering against her cheek. His arms locked around her, solid as oak beams. Time stopped meaning anything. Could have been minutes or hours. The world above them came apart, piece by piece. Glass shattering, wood splintering, the tin roof peeling away with a shriek that sounded human. Then pressure in her ears, like diving deep underwater. The cellar door exploded outward. The tornado was directly overhead, trying to suck them up into its belly. Jacob's grip tightened. His lips moved against her hair. Not words she could hear over the roar, but she felt them. Prayer, maybe. Or promises. Or just her name, repeated like an anchor. Anna wrapped her arms around his waist, held on with everything she had. If they were going to die, at least not alone, not separate. Together in the dark, while the world ended above them. The lantern went out, perfect black. Just the roar and the pressure, and two bodies pressed together against the earth. His breath on her neck, her hands fisted in his shirt. Both of them reduced to heartbeat and held breath, and the desperate hope that the beams would hold. Then, sudden as it came, the roar moved on. Still there, but distant, chewing through someone else's life now. The pressure eased. Anna's ears popped. She could hear again, Jacob's ragged breathing, her own sob she hadn't known she was holding. "Stay here," he said against her hair. "No." She gripped tighter. "Together or not at all." He pulled back enough to see her face in the dim light filtering through where the door used to be. His hand came up, touched her cheek. Checking for injury or something else, she couldn't tell. "Together, then." They climbed out, careful, Jacob first, pulling her up after. The world above was wrong. Where the kitchen should be, sky showed through. The roof was gone, half the walls too. The stove sat untouched, but the table was missing. Sarah's good china cups still sat on the shelf, filled with water, while the shelf above had vanished completely. "The barn," Anna breathed. They turned. The barn was gone. Not damaged. Gone, like it had never existed. In its place, scattered lumber and one confused cow standing in the wreckage, mooing pitiful. The chicken coop had been lifted and set down 20 feet away, upside down. From underneath came indignant squawking. Jacob laughed, not happy laughter, the kind that comes when crying would mean never stopping. Chickens survived, but the barn didn't. Lord works in mysterious ways. Anna saw something worse. The lean-to. Her room. The corner of the house where she'd slept these past weeks. Everything gone except the floor and part of one wall. Her carpet bag had vanished. The yellow dress Jacob gave her disappeared. The bed Sarah never slept in, reduced to splinters. But the main bedroom, Jacob's room, stood untouched except for missing windows. "Storm's got its own mind about things," Jacob said, following her gaze. "Took your room, left mine." "Along with my clothes, my things." Not that she'd had much, but it had been hers. "Anna." His voice was strange. She turned. He was staring at her, at himself, at how they stood. Sometime during the storm, without meaning to, they'd wound together like vines. Her hands still gripped his shirt. His arms still circled her waist. They were breathing in rhythm, hearts still racing in time. She should step back, return to proper distance. Remember, this was business arrangement, not marriage, true. Instead, she looked at the wreckage around them. The barn Jacob had built with his own hands. The kitchen she'd made her own. Everything broken except them. They'd survived by holding on, by choosing together over separate. "We need to check for injured animals," she said, not moving. "Yeah." "Need to salvage what we can before dark." "Yeah." "Need to figure out where we're going to sleep tonight." His arm tightened slightly. "Anna." "Mr. Cole!" Sam Patterson came galloping through the wreckage on a horse, wild-eyed with fear. The boy was bleeding from a dozen cuts, his clothes torn to rags. "Mr. Cole, you gotta come!" The tornado hit our place dead on. Pa's trapped under the house. Ma sent me to find help. Jacob released her, already moving. "How bad?" "Bad. His legs are pinned. Ma can hear him, but can't reach him." Jacob grabbed what tools he could find in the wreckage. A shovel, a pry bar, rope that had somehow wound around the water pump. "I'm coming," Anna said. "No, too dangerous. You need every hand, and I know some doctoring." Her mother had taught her, back when they still spoke, back when Anna was still daughter instead of disappointment. He looked at her, really looked. Saw something there that made him nod. "Can you ride?" "If I have to." They caught 2 horses that had survived in the far pasture, spooked but uninjured. Anna hiked her skirts, swung up bareback, gripping the mane. Jacob raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. They rode hard through a landscape transformed. Trees stripped naked, fences gone, dead cattle scattered like broken dolls. The tornado's path carved through the prairie straight as a railroad, everything on one side untouched, everything on the other destroyed. The Patterson place looked like something from Revelation. The house had been lifted, twisted, set down wrong. Walls leaned at angles that hurt to see. The roof sat in the yard like a hat blown off in wind. Mrs. Patterson stood at what used to be the front door, her perfect hair now wild, her riding dress torn. When she saw them, something broke in her face.
"Thank the Lord. He's under here. I can hear him, but—"
From under the twisted wood came a sound that made Anna's stomach clench. Not quite scream, not quite moan. The sound pain makes when it's past words. Jacob was already assessing, walking the wreckage, testing boards. "Sam, get every man you can find. We're going to need leverage. Anna, see what medical supplies survived. Mrs. Patterson, keep talking to him. Let him know we're here." Anna searched the wreckage, found the Pattersons' kitchen, scattered but recognizable. Carbolic acid, unbroken by miracle. Clean cloth that used to be curtains. A sewing kit with needles that might serve if it came to that. When she turned back, she saw Jacob had stripped to the waist, his muscles coiled as he and Sam worked to shift a beam. Something was building between the two of them, she realized. Something that had nothing to do with convenience or arrangement. Something born in the darkness of the cellar, fed by shared fear and shared survival. Something that might grow into more if they let it. If they lived through this day. If Patterson survived. If they could build again from nothing. She heard Jacob curse. First time she'd heard profanity from him. Saw what he saw. The main beam holding the house's weight. The same beam pinning Patterson's legs. Move it wrong, the whole structure would collapse. Move it right, and they might save him. But one wrong calculation, one shifted board, and they'd be pulling out a corpse instead of a man. Jacob met her eyes across the wreckage, and she saw him realize the same thing she did. This choice, this moment, would change everything. Save Patterson and become heroes. Fail and become the couple who let the neighbor die. "We need to shore up the sides first," Anna said, surprising herself with her steady voice. "Create a tunnel, then pull him out without shifting the main weight." Jacob stared at her. "You've done this before?" "Saw it once. Cave in at a mine back home." She didn't add that 3 men had died anyway, didn't mention the screams that still visited her dreams. "Show me," Jacob said. And just like that, she was in charge. The woman no one wanted, directing men on how to save a life. The barren wife, becoming something more in the wreckage of the storm. Anna directed the men like she'd been born to it. "Sam, get those fence posts. We'll use them as braces. Mr. Johnson, smaller boards there. We're building a tunnel, not a bridge." 6 neighbors had arrived, drawn by disaster the way prairie draws rain. They listened to her without question, maybe because her voice carried the same certainty that had kept her standing on that depot platform weeks ago. Jacob worked beside her, following her lead without pride getting in the way. They moved together now like they'd moved in the kitchen, wordless understanding, handing tools before asked, knowing where the other would step. "Almost there," Patterson groaned from underneath. His voice was getting weaker. "Save your strength, Mr. Patterson," Anna called down. 5 more minutes. It took 20. Every board placed careful, every brace tested twice. When the tunnel was finally secure, Jacob went in head first, rope tied around his waist. Anna held the other end with 3 men, ready to pull if the structure shifted. She could hear Jacob talking low to Patterson, calm words, while he worked to free the trapped legs. Then, "Pull! Steady!" They pulled. Patterson screamed once, sharp and terrible, then went quiet. For a moment, Anna thought they'd lost him. Then Jacob emerged backward, dragging Patterson by the shoulders,
The man's legs twisted wrong, but free. "He's alive," Jacob said. "But those legs—" Anna was already moving, checking for bleeding, feeling for breaks. Both legs shattered below the knee, but no major blood loss. Not yet. "We need the doctor," Mrs. Patterson said, her face white as flour. "Doctor's 20 miles away," someone said. "If his place even survived."
Anna looked at the angles of Patterson's legs, the way his left foot pointed backward. Thought of the 3 miners back home, how 2 died waiting for the doctor, how 1 lived because her mother hadn't waited.
"I can set them," she heard herself say. "Not perfect, but enough to give him a chance when the doctor does come." Mrs. Patterson grabbed her arm. "You? But you're not. You don't—" "I've seen it done. I've helped it done." Anna met the woman's eyes straight. "Your choice. Let me try, or wait and hope." Mrs. Patterson looked at her husband, unconscious now, his face gray as ash. "Do it." Anna had Jacob cut splints from lumber while she mixed carbolic acid with what water they'd found. Sam held Patterson's shoulders. 4 men held his hips. Jacob positioned himself at Anna's direction, ready to pull the bones straight while she guided them. "On 3, she said. 1, 2. On 3, she nodded to Jacob. He pulled steady while she felt the bones through skin, guiding them back to where they belonged. Patterson woke screaming. Mrs. Patterson sobbed. But Anna's hands stayed steady, working by touch and memory and prayer. The left leg went back together like the Lord intended it that way. The right fought her, bones grinding. She had to break it again to set it right. That's when Patterson passed out for good, which was mercy. When both legs were splinted and wrapped, Anna sat back on her heels. Blood covered her hands, her dress. The sun was setting, painting everything the color of the morning's storm clouds. "Will he live?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "Maybe, if infection doesn't set in. If the bones heal straight. If." Anna stood, legs shaking. "Keep the wounds clean. Carbolic acid twice a day. Don't let him try to move for at least 2 months."
Mrs. Patterson grabbed Anna's bloody hands.
"I was wrong. What I said before. What I thought."
Tears cut channels through the dirt on her face.
"You're exactly who Jacob needed. Who we all needed."
Anna pulled her hands free, uncomfortable with the gratitude.
"Anyone would have—"
"No," Jacob said, quiet. "They wouldn't." He was looking at her different now. Not like arrangement, not like convenience, like something else entirely. They rode home in last light, horses picking through debris. Neither spoke. Too much had changed in one day. The storm, the rescue, the way they'd worked together like 2 hands of the same body. The ranch looked worse in sunset, shadows making the damage deeper. The roofless kitchen gaped at the sky. Anna's destroyed room showed its bones to the world. But the chickens were alive, complaining loud about their overturned coop. The milk cow stood patient by the ruined barn, needing milked. Life demanding attention despite destruction. "We'll sleep in my room," Jacob said. "Only space left with 4 walls and a roof." Anna nodded. No energy left for propriety. They were past that now, past the careful distances of their first weeks. They worked by lantern light, salvaging what they could. The stove still functioned, miracle of cast iron stubbornness. She made coffee, fried eggs from the scattered nest boxes, toasted bread on the fire. Simple food that tasted like survival. "You did good today," Jacob said over the meal. "With Patterson. With everything."
"Learned from my mother. Before she decided I was dead to her,
Her loss. They cleaned up in silence, then faced the reality of the sleeping arrangement. One room, one bed. Two people who'd started as strangers and become something else in the space of a storm. "I'll take the floor," Jacob said. "No." Anna surprised herself with the firmness. "We're both exhausted. We're both adults. We can share a bed without it meaning more than shelter." He looked at her long, then nodded. They prepared for bed, careful. Her behind the privacy screen Sarah had painted with flowers, him turned to the wall. The bed was big enough for distance between them, but the mattress dipped toward the middle, gravity pulling them closer than intended. Anna lay rigid, aware of every sound he made, every breath, every shift. The storm had stripped away more than roofs and walls. It had stripped away the pretense that they were just two people sharing work. "Anna?" His voice came soft in the darkness. "Yeah?" "Today, in the cellar, when I thought we might die, I realized something." She waited, heart hammering. "I wrote in Sarah's journal, before I came to the depot, about trying again, about being stronger." "I know, I saw it, when you showed me the journal." Quiet stretched between them. Then, "I thought I meant stronger at being alone, but that wasn't it." The bed creaked as he turned toward her. She could feel his warmth across the space between them, could smell soap and sweat, and something uniquely him. What was it then? Strong enough to choose, not fall into something because it's expected or proper or easy, but choose it clear-eyed, knowing the risks. Anna turned toward him, could barely see his face in the moonlight through the broken window. "What are you choosing?" "You, if you'll have me. Not as arrangement, not as convenience. As wife true." The words hung between them like morning stars. Anna thought about standing on that platform, about Mrs. Patterson's cruel questions, about Sarah's journal full of romantic dreams, about today, working together like they'd always been paired. "I'm not Sarah," she said. "Won't ever be." Thank the Lord for that. His hand found hers between them. "I don't want Sarah. I want the woman who stood tall while the world laughed, who works without complaining, who saved a man's life with nothing but memory and nerve." "I can't give you children." "Don't want children. Want partner. Want wife. Want you." Anna thought about all the ways she'd been rejected, by Thomas, by her family, by the town, by everyone except this man who'd chosen her when she was the last one standing. "Yes," she said. Simple, clear. "I choose you too." He pulled her closer, slow enough she could stop him if she wanted. She didn't want. His arms came around her, solid and sure as they'd been in the cellar. But this wasn't about shelter from storm. This was about choosing to build something from wreckage. His kiss was careful, question and answer both. She'd been kissed before, Thomas's demanding mouth taking what he called his due. This was different. This was conversation. This was recognition. This was two people who'd survived separately, choosing to live together. When they pulled apart, he touched her face, gentle, thumb tracing the path tears had taken. "We'll rebuild," he said. "The house, the barn, everything. But different this time. How you want it. How we want it. Together. Together." They settled into each other, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Outside, coyotes called across the empty prairie. Wind whistled through the missing roof, but inside this room, in this bed, Two people who'd expected nothing found everything.
Jacob?
Hmm?
Tomorrow when we go to town for supplies, I'm signing the register as Anna Cole. My real name this time. No more pretending.
His arm tightened around her. Good. Though folks might talk, us sharing a bed before the preacher says words over us proper. Anna laughed, surprising herself with the sound.
Let them talk. We're the ones who survived the storm.
Morning would bring work, rebuilding, facing the town's questions and gossip. But for now, in the darkness of their damaged house, they had this, the choice to be together. Not because they had to, not because circumstances forced it, but because somewhere between that depot platform and this moment, two people who'd given up on love discovered something better. Partnership. Trust. And the kind of love that comes not from falling, but from choosing to stand together when the world tries to knock you down. The rooster crowed early, confused by the missing coop walls. Anna stirred, felt Jacob's arms still around her, and smiled. Outside, the sun was rising over the wreckage. Time to rebuild. Time to begin. Time to live the life they'd chosen in the ruins of the one thrust upon them. She rose, dressed behind the screen painted with Sarah's flowers, keeping this one piece of the past while building toward the future. Jacob watched her with eyes that promised everything. Work, struggle, probably more storms. But also this, someone who'd chosen her when she was the last one standing. Someone she'd chosen in return. "Ready?" he asked. Anna looked at the damaged house, the work ahead, the man who'd become her husband in truth, if not yet in law. Thought about all the people who'd said she was damaged goods. Barren. Worthless. "Ready," she said, and meant it. They walked out together to face the day, no longer two people sharing space, but two halves of something whole. The storm had taken their shelter but given them something better, the knowledge that they'd chosen each other not in spite of their damage, but because of it. Two people who understood that sometimes being the one no one wanted meant you were saved for the one who could truly see. The work would be hard. The town would gossip. The future remained uncertain. But Anna Cole, for that's who she was now, truly and completely, had learned something in that storm cellar, pressed against the earth while the world ended above. Sometimes the best love stories begin not with perfection, but with two people choosing to build something beautiful from the wreckage of their separate disasters. You know what I've learned after 30 years of ranching? The strongest fences aren't built alone. That morning after the storm, when half our county lay in ruins, I watched something remarkable. Anna Cole, the woman everyone had dismissed at that depot, became the thread that stitched us back together. She taught Mrs. Patterson's sewing circle how to make bandages, showed the younger wives how to stretch supplies when stores couldn't get shipments. Even grumpy Tom Hadley listened when she explained crop rotation. See, we'd all been so focused on what Anna couldn't give, children, pedigree, conventional beauty, that we missed what she could offer. Practical wisdom, steady hands, and the rare ability to see people for who they were, not who they pretended to be. When young Margaret Patterson came crying about Sam's marriage proposal, it was Anna she sought. When my own wife needed advice about a difficult birth, Anna was there with herbs and honesty. Jacob changed too, started coming to town meetings, even smiled occasionally. They rebuilt that ranch different, better. Not trying to recreate what was lost, but creating something new. Sometimes the one nobody wants becomes the one everybody needs. Note: this story was inspired by Western romance traditions and created solely for entertainment purposes. It does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior.
All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental.